Boom. We're there. Hey, everybody. It's us. Atlantic Council and Yang. We are back with another lively episode. I am here with the lovely Love L. Bone App the 10th. Yeah.
Bone App the 10th.
Yeah. And then I'm a freedom fighter. Like, Or if I ain't got time to be throwing them hands, I'm about to shoot you. Oh, we're typically live Tuesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and wherever else you're out, wherever else you are in those time zones, whether across the world, across the country, I don't know, but you can figure it out. Across the street, man, that's even weirder if you're across the street, man.
Different time zone.
Just still, man.
I know, right? That would be weird.
That would be super weird. Like if y'all was online and y'all live right across the street from me, and I ain't said, "Hey, Ron, what's up?" I'm like,
I know, right? Like I've been watching you for this entire year. You're great. It's like, why didn't you say?
Like, why didn't you knock up on the door? Like, you know, hey, where you been? Like, been watching you online. You've been awesome.
You want that?
Cool.
Come knocking on my apartment.
I mean, if they saw me, like, then I don't know. It depends. I've had a weirdo come to my door once. It's not fun. But
no, I'm with you. I have several occasions that I had to kind of like hold my full-blooded pit bull back, and then I had to keep my peace still, you know, just so if anything were to brew up, I still had some peace in the midst of the storm. That's a pun if y'all didn't know about it.
Wait, say that again? That was brewing up?
If there was a storm brewing up, I had a peace, not the PEACE, but yeah. Yes, I love my peace, both literally and the physical manner.
Load your peace, be still. Peace, load your still. I think Medea said that or something.
She said, "My peace became steel." Yes, my peace was steel, and then it also became steel. So yes. Anyways, I digress. We digress. We're going to talk about Juneteenth, which is happening this weekend. And so, Al told you want to Mish. Friend.
Just on time.
Yes.
Friend.
Thank you as always.
Love you.
Yes. Love me.
Yes. So, Juneteenth. Who wants to talk about Juneteenth? Who wants us to?
I'll start. Yeah. So Juneteenth. And I know I mentioned this in a previous stream about how, like, when I found out about it, it wasn't that long ago. It was like, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, maybe. I first found out about it. I don't know the exact year, but definitely wasn't over 10 years ago, and you know, Juneteenth is something that's well over 10 years ago. It's from June 19th, 1865 to be exact. But it's just sad how this was just, you know, hidden from us. And, you know, like, I don't know if like hidden is a correct word, or maybe it just wasn't talked about or mentioned or brought to light really, because in the Black community, it was definitely something that was, you know, it was definitely something that was celebrated, like I believe, especially in Texas and in like the southern border states that were the last to find out that slavery ended 2 years ago. But but it's not, you know, it wasn't really like celebrated or talked about within the rest of the country, which I think it should be. I think today the Senate is trying to make Juneteenth like an official like government holiday, which I believe it should be. Every time I think about it, it's like, hell yeah, it should be. Like, what's more American than just like celebrating more freedom? We celebrate the hell out of 4th of July, which was our Independence Day, in 1776. But that was just pretty much white men, or like mainly like rich white men with land, most likely had freedom, and then it eventually like spread over to this other pretty much men. But then in 1865, that's when slavery totally ended. So that's just more Americans getting getting freedom again. Mm-hmm. So like, what's not to celebrate? What's not to enjoy about that? Like, I really hope no one I mean, of course, there's going to be people who have an issue with it becoming some government holiday. They'll be like, well, we have 4th of July off and June 19th off. What the hell? That's two. It's like, and then we have Memorial Day. That's 3 months in a row. What's going on? Like, there's going to be somebody. There's going to be somebody who's like, most likely some crummy business owner who, doesn't know about work-life balance and just thinks their employees are just, pretty much slaves, no pun intended, to their company. But I definitely think this is something that's good for the country in total, like having it to be a government holiday, having it to be recognized, celebrated. And, even if you're someone who just came to this country and, got a full-time job and they recognize it and you have the day off, you can learn about it, just have like a little bit more appreciation for this country. And, it's also a way to just sort of show, especially African Americans, that, hey, this is your Independence Day, this is your freedom, and that equally matters. So, yeah, for sure. I know I just kind of went on a tangent. My job, we actually recognize Juneteenth now, so I actually have Friday off, which is exciting, because June always seemed like a dry month, but it's kind of nice that we have like Memorial Day, now we have Juneteenth, now we have 4th of July. So it's sort of, and then Labor Day in September. So it's kind of cool. I think, overall we should just have more recognized days off. Like, it still puzzles me that we don't have September 11th off. I feel like we should.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
For sure, but
yeah. But yeah, that's my piece. Probably have more to say. But, yeah.
Go ahead, Toby.
So it's very interesting because one question that we should pose to everyone, I mean, Elle, you basically answered it in your own, like, is when did we first learn about Juneteenth, right? So it's a thing that now has become much more nationalized. Last year became on people's radars more with sort of everything going on in the country with the racial unrest and people sort of doing the reckoning. So for me personally, I actually heard about Juneteenth because there was like this, wasn't really a cookout per se. I mean, I feel like it was a cookout because there was food there. It was in some, not even a mall, but just, it was near some like lake, and there was just some area with like a few businesses and like some outdoor seating. And it was like in my county. So, I'm from Maryland. This is Charles County, Waldorf, Maryland, which is about 40% Black, which I didn't realize how like how not normal that is compared to most of the other parts of the country. My high school was like 40% Black, which I also didn't realize was very exceptional.
That is very, yeah.
So that it wasn't my high school specifically, but it was a teacher in my high school who I did not have as a teacher, but she was a mentor for a club I was involved in, eventually became president of. We ended up doing mostly initiatives around health, but also like things with culture, just kind of like young people who are interested in science. Mostly we were minorities, not all of us, but a lot of us were. And I remember we actually celebrated, like we had a Kwanzaa event after school. So that was another thing that was on my radar. But we did something for Juneteenth. Like it would always be, I didn't really realize exactly like the significance because this would happen, you know, with high school, you get out of school so late. This very well could have happened in school. I remember getting out of school on June 20th, my like junior year. That was god awful. It was like the 17th was a Friday, the 18th, 19th was the weekend, the 20th was a Monday. So many people just didn't show up that Monday. Of course, me being like a little nerd, I did, but I just wanted to see my friends again one last day before senior year. But in any case, like Juneteenth, it could have been technically when the summer started. It could have been before the summer, but I think typically it was after school ended. They would do like this event, and like there would be performances from like maybe spoken word, people who did bands, like you know people in band, and it was like Black people, you know. So like it may have been like not necessarily go-go, but you have people on the drums, people on guitar, might be singing R&B. They're pretty much all students or at least young people. So I knew of Juneteenth, but like it was still one of those things where like, yeah, I know this event. I'm always involved with this organization. We do this thing, but it wasn't such a big thing that I thought about year after year. Like I'd never remembered Juneteenth, like pretty much once I graduated high school and college during the summers. I mean, maybe I went back to one of them, but I usually wasn't even home in Maryland, and otherwise I wasn't hearing about it. I don't know, it just wasn't, and I think because of the timing of it as well, even if I was involved with like Black organizations like in college or grad school, you know, no one's around at that time. So I wasn't talking about Juneteenth with like school friends because we were all elsewhere, you know, running around doing internships, home, working, just maybe doing summer school. So it wasn't really until I think I moved to Boston, or I should say Mass, in 2019 when I heard of actual Juneteenth events, like in some of the more minority areas of Boston. So from there, Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, like I think in particular, there was a park called Franklin Park, and there would be like Juneteenth events that the Boston Young Black Professionals group would put on. And so I didn't go because it was like my first year moving here. I didn't live that close to Boston. So I was like, do I really want to drive this far? It's going to be hot. I'm going to have to find parking. I can live. And I didn't go. And I wouldn't say I regret it, but it's kind of sad because that was pre-COVID. That would have been an interesting experience. That's apparently where a lot of like Black young professionals met each other for the first time, was at some of these events, like the cookouts and the potlucks. So, you know, it's become much more of like, you know, time to celebrate us, and just like moving, like looking forward. Because of course you have all these other days, MLK weekend, you have Memorial, you have days that are broader, like Memorial Day, Thanksgiving, which is more family oriented, but like Juneteenth is like very, like such a tight knit thing where it's like, this is Black America, even if you don't necessarily date back to that time. Like I know you and me, Al, in particular, you know, we have like more of an immigrant route. So I can't trace my origins back to Juneteenth or like American slavery, but it's still something very significant. And it's still something that I try to connect to more and like at least understand what people do to celebrate. Like last year, actually, one person, I met him, he's white. I met him canvassing for Yang in New Hampshire. Like we carpooled together. We talk pretty often on Facebook. Like he comments on my stuff a lot, sometimes comment on his. And he actually asked me, like, cause I posted something about Juneteenth last year, and he actually said like, hey, Toby, what should I do for Juneteenth? And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know. Like, I just like Googled, I guess, here are some things. I literally looked up what should people do, like white people, or what should people do as allies to support Juneteenth. I didn't find many articles, honestly. So I kind of just found like businesses that had Juneteenth specials and went from there. Heyo.
Hey, that's my homie. Hey, Sylvia.
Okay.
Hey, Tavia. Yeah. That's my homie. Yeah. Glad you stopped by. Go ahead, Toby.
Yeah, that was mostly it. It's just like Juneteenth became such a big thing that all of a sudden everyone's talking about it. And I didn't realize, like, I took it for granted that I knew of it. But even then, I I think it helped being in Maryland. It's a more diverse area. I had access to like the museums. I mean, you can find museums everywhere, but like you have much bigger presence. Like there was even like a what was it? There was like a Civil War African American history, like not even a museum, it's more of a memorial in a way. Like it was a museum in DC, but it was mostly like an outdoor type of area with just a few things that kind of explained like the history of like the black, which I'm pretty sure it was like an all black, one of the last regiments that actually forced the Confederates to surrender was all black, or at least majority black. And so there was like a history there that isn't often taught, that the Emancipation Proclamation didn't, of course, free the slaves. It only freed the slaves in the southern states. And of course, the southern states were doing whatever they wanted, which is why they were in the Civil War in the first place. So it didn't really do anything until you were able to conquer each state, or however you want to say, like each state basically surrendered, or each basically until the very end of the war, and like each state had the Union soldiers come, there was slavery. So it was interesting learning some of that history as well, like the black soldiers who basically essentially forced the actual war to end, which then more formally ended slavery. And even then you had to wait until the news traveled to Juneteenth. So I guess I took for granted knowing a lot of these things, but I didn't like know it so internally. Like, I knew of Juneteenth. I knew Texas was the last to know, but it wasn't something I really held deep in my heart. But now it's like there's much more pride in it. So it's so crazy to see, like 2010, 11, 12, I knew about Juneteenth, but I didn't really think much of it. And now it's kind of like a much bigger thing where I have to check my company policy, but like I'm pretty sure we're not going to give like a holiday. I guess it becomes a federal holiday, then because we're federally funded, we would get that off. Maybe. I don't think we get all federal holidays, to be honest, but that would be interesting. And it's just interesting to see that every state has passed some kind of recognition. I think one state like North or South Dakota has kind of been stalling, but for the most part, everyone's been passing some kind of recognition of Juneteenth. The federal government, of course, is looking at that. Like, we have the Senate bill unanimous. So I'm like, thank you, Senate, for not being, I mean, garbage, I guess, in a time of partisan division.
Yeah.
But the House, I'm not sure. I mean, the House has a majority, but it's just, the House is just
I find it odd that it went to the Senate first and the House, because I usually think isn't it always the House then the Senate? Or
it
I guess
depends.
No government.
The anti-lynching bill was a Senate thing first. That one stalled because Rand Paul was doing Rand Paul, I think. But
He was like,
that one, I
got it confused. I'm like, how? How would people get that confused? How is that confusing?
Wait, sorry, you said what about confusing?
Thank you for not.
Oh,
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Way to go, it's so easy for it to be garbage. It just takes like one person who's like, well.
Then the filibuster.
One person, freaking Rand Paul and his. I mean, he's not even the worst, but like he's annoying at times. Like, there's just multiple people just doing nonsense, and it's like, why are we doing this? It's a lynching bill, anti-lynching bill. Christ.
I know.
I'm sorry.
I gotta stop this because it might be confusing or something. It was something stupid. I'm like, how do you not know what that means? That sounds like a you problem. I think you're the only one who finds it confusing. But yeah.
Man. No, you're good. You're good. And it's funny because I know a lot of people are talking about how they first learned about Juneteenth. I actually learned about Juneteenth through Blackish. Believe it or not, they had an episode where they were talking about it, and they kind of did it as a musical-ish type of play thing that kind of made sense. It was one of their earlier episodes, but I'm like, okay, cool. Like, okay, like I knew about it, but I didn't like go into depth about it until I saw that, and then that's when it kind of like sparked up my interest. And I remember, I think I was either in Colorado Springs, and I was buying fireworks, and ran into the black couple. They're like, "Why are you buying fireworks for what?" I'm like, "It's the independence." Like, now you do realize that you're celebrating something that wasn't meant for you to begin with. I'm like, what you talking about? I'm like, dude, do you not realize that the majority of Black people in America during the War of Independence were somewhat slaves? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, for most Black people, we weren't free until 1865. That's our actual independence. And I'm kind of sat there and thought about it, like, okay, so I started doing some more research about it. And then sure enough, I'm like, whoa, like, okay, like that makes sense. That makes a whole lot of sense. And especially if I can trace like my lineage on my mom's side, possibly my dad's side, but I know for sure my mom's side, somewhere along the line, my great grandparents, they were slaves. You know, even my great grandparents who I had the pleasure of meeting before they passed, you know, they were still, and I know I told the story a lot. Right. I know it is. You know, my great grandparents, before they moved up to Michigan, this was like back in the 2000s. And mind you, they died. When they died, my great grandfather was 100 when he passed. And my great grandmother, she was like 90, 97, 98 when she passed, but they were still both smart as a whip. Like before they moved up to Michigan, they were still living in the house that they bought, you know, like years ago. Like the land that they had was handed down to them from like generation. So they were like the next generation to inherit that land that they might have gotten from the slave master. Like that's how far back it goes. Yeah. And again, like my grandmother told me stories about how her and her brothers and their sisters, they all grew up on there, and then they all decided to move up to Michigan, and you know that's what they did. You know, they stayed down there, and then they're like, you know, hey, they're gonna up their in age, let's bring them back, let's bring them to Michigan, you know, and blah blah blah. And so that's how I met them. You know, like I said, smart as a whip, full of knowledge. But again, when it comes to Juneteenth for me, that's where I learned about it. And it's one of those things where I'm slowly starting seeing a lot more cities holding some kind of true. Oh, so true. So true. So true. Like I don't even think my school even taught about Juneteenth, like at all. I think the one teacher who might have said something was my history teacher, but he had a major in African American studies. You know, I think at one point in time, even he brought up Juneteenth. You know, even then he couldn't really get in depth into us like Toby. You know, we were out of school way before Juneteenth was even around. You know what I mean? It was as far as like being mainstream. Before June 19th showed up, we were already out of school. So it was like, what's the point of, you know, teaching it if we're not even going to be there to learn about it? Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
know, what I find interesting when people say, you know, they don't remember things in history class, it makes me wonder, how should we teach history now? Like for it to be in history class, because, you know, I do find history interesting, but in school I didn't like history. And I guess it was just because especially American history, because all they talked about were just the wars. And, you know, it's like you learn about this decade and then this shit happened in this decade, and then you go into the next decade. And then you learn about some shit, and then you go into the other decade, and that's how it was taught, at least to me. But you're just sort of like, okay, you're just going to teach me whatever the hell is going to be on this test, and then, you know, that's how a lot of things are taught nowadays. And, you know, you just sort of, it's like you learn truths, but you don't learn the whole truth, or you learn, you know, just like certain snippets or pockets of things, and it's like, how should history be taught? Yeah, it was just boring. Just always talking about the wars, and and stuff, and like the cool things they never really, I guess they never really like touched on a lot, like the Harlem Renaissance, was probably like, like that's like some really cool shit, and like a lot of stuff happened, but they would just make it seem like Langston Hughes and that was the only guy, or like and maybe like one other person, but a lot of stuff happened, during the Harlem Renaissance, and to my knowledge, that's like the only Renaissance in America that ever happened. Like, whereas like the European Renaissance, with all the painters like Leonardo da Vinci and like Michelangelo, and I believe that was during the Renaissance, and all those paintings and artistry and all that, like pretty much like swept through several countries. And, America had its Renaissance. It was the Harlem Renaissance. I don't know of any other Renaissance. And we don't really talk about that. We just care about like the white European Renaissance, across the pond.
Sheesh. Call it yeah.
So, and like there's just so much rich history in this country that, like, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, I guess so, to just make it, because it's like, yeah, the word importance really like sticks out. It's pretty much saying, hey, this is what's important, but intentionally leaving things out makes it seem like other things weren't. By things like this stream. Yeah, that's true.
Facts.
It's just I wish we could, not like us. I don't want to be responsible for kids' knowledge, but like, like teachers should really go into depth about things, because you would really think that nothing really happened, or America was just like this chill country that had slaves for a bit, but now like we're cool, and then now we're here. And it's like, oh, there was segregation, but then Martin Luther King was like, nah, and then now there's no segregation, as if he wasn't strongly disliked. Like, that's why he was assassinated, because he was strongly disliked, strongly hated,
Yeah.
like the government and everything was like against him, when he really didn't do anything like harmful. He was for the most part peaceful, like, but yeah, it's pretty terrible.
Like it was a pat on the back. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, oh, it's like, sorry for slaving y'all, but we're cool, right? All right, that's nothing to talk about. And sometimes there were like some really cool slave stories. And it's like, I would like to learn about that, because it makes it seem like slaves were just like these people with no thoughts, no feelings, like just, just workers that were hella mistreated, and slaves. I don't have to like go into fucking detail about that. But sometimes I like to think, okay, so I believe that there's really nothing new under the sun. People might think, oh, like gay people or trans people are like new. It's like, no, I believe that they have always existed, and they just couldn't outwardly express themselves because of limited resources and societal structures and all that. But yeah, of course, like trans people, gay people have always existed, and people who were like inventors, people who had like really great ideas, those people were slaves too. They were probably just out there plowing the fields, thinking of like really cool shit, talking about really cool shit, but they just couldn't, they couldn't do anything with this because they were slaves. But, now we just have like the stereotypes of like Black people being stupid or ignorant or lazy or any other thing, and when that shouldn't really be the case, because I'm sure that, like they had, like, it just really saddens me to think that they, like, just for centuries, for generations, Black people in this country just couldn't fully express themselves, fully do the things that they wanted to do because of slavery. Like, it's really sad and sickening because, we probably just missed out on, well, not probably, most definitely, we most definitely missed out on, probably like great music, innovation, just culture, like technology, just anything, because of like what we do now today. Because once again, nothing new is under the sun. So, we probably could have been done this. We probably would have been like centuries ahead of, in this world if, slavery just didn't exist. Or if, like, I believe what they were promised, like, oh, it'll last like 7 years or something. I think that's how it was supposed to be. Like, don't quote me on this, but like, I think that's how it was supposed to be initially. Then they just made it into like a whole fucking law. It's like, no, you're just gonna be slaves forever. But I think it was supposed to be like something temporary.
Yep.
And they got their freedom. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were. What you're looking for is they were supposed to be indentured servants, meaning that they worked underneath the master for 7 years, especially if they couldn't pay off the debt. They were to work underneath somebody for 7 years. At the end of their 7 years, that was a mark saying, they repaid their debt. They're good. They're free. Mm-hmm. And again, going back to what you were saying, I learned this in college history. Jesus, still got the book. Still got the book. And so basically what they did was a bunch of the sharecroppers, the wealthy plantation owners, they actually lobbied against their elected officials and, hey, we're going to be short on manpower if these people leave. Why don't we just make a law that makes them not eligible for freedom, and then just kind of turn that into a very lucrative type of economy. Mm-hmm. And again, mind you, a lot of the people that were working on these plantations were Europeans who had very weak immune systems, who could not handle the type of physical abuse that were on these plantations. And so what they ended up doing was they looked across the pond and they saw some folks whose immune systems was a whole heck of a lot better than the European counterparts, who are a whole lot stronger and durable than the European counterparts. And also at the same time, because this is powerful and this talks and the other stuff walks away, the rest is history, as I like to say. The rest is history.
Because the transatlantic slave trade was already occurring at the time. Like I believe that was already a thing. Because I know that, slaves from Africa were already going to like South America and things like that. So that was already like a thing that everybody knew was going on. So I believe like the initial indentured servants were probably Irish.
Yes.
And that's where like the false myth of Irish were slaves too, when they were in fact not on American soil. They were not slaves. They were indentured servants here.
Yes.
But that's, oftentimes misconstrued to be like, well, the Irish were slaves and they're doing fine, as if they're not white. But
yeah.
So
even still, like the Irish, and again, we're not going to even throw no disrespect on Irish.
Absolutely not.
We're not in no way. Please,
they were very mistreated too. They were really fucking mistreated.
Yeah. Don't take that word. We're pooping on them. No. It's just stating the facts. Like again, because of the fact that most people that came from those European nations, and even those Irishmen that came over, they came over on an agreement. They came over with some sort of contract put in place. The only difference is The black folks, those Africans that came over, they didn't have no contracts. They were forcibly brought in. You know, they were sold into slavery, and that was it. It was a very lucrative money-making business, very lucrative.
Yeah,
and it got exploited very quick, very rapidly. So yeah, you may not hear about this in history class, but hey, you might be your history teachers, quote unquote. Not really.
What I find funny is, you know, like we're talking about this because it's just facts, at least from like what we recall. You definitely know more than I do, Ron. And we're not, you know, like it's no like hard feelings. We're not upset. Like I feel like this is what like and turn permanently. What?
For the most part, I get. For the most part, yeah. And the permanent part was when those Africans came over as slaves, even when they went down to Cuba to work the sugarcane plantation, you know, still.
And just the Caribbean in general, like the Jamaican definitely was sugarcane for sure.
Yeah,
and Dominican Republic too.
Yeah, it became a permanent thing. Like there was no get out of this in X amount of years. Like, nah, you're here until you literally die. That was it.
Yeah. Then your kids were born into slavery.
Boom.
There was one country, I can't remember, where that wasn't the case. I have to remember. I can't remember. I think it was like France, or maybe it was something in the Caribbean. I don't know, but there was a country where, like, if you know, like a white person were to impregnate a slave, I guess a white man were to impregnate like a female slave, and that kid wouldn't be a slave, whereas in America the kid would be. So I can't remember what country that was, but I thought that was pretty interesting. So like different countries just had different laws for different things. I think, was it Jamaica? I can't remember. I think it was a Caribbean country actually. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, while we're sitting around, Toby, do you have anything that you wanted to add?
There, I think, was something earlier.
Oh, sorry, I just remembered my thought because I was trying to say this a little early. I apologize.
Go for it.
So, yeah, like I feel like what we're talking about would be pretty much, I mean, I haven't like read what exactly would be in the curriculum of critical race theory and how it would be taught in schools. But I feel like this is pretty much how it would be taught. You know, well, pretty much just the truth. I feel like they should just call it the truth, you know, like full, true, in-depth history. Because Colombia has to learn about, you know, the whole cocaine thing. I can't remember the guy's name. I can't believe his name is slipping me. But I know that Colombia has to learn about that. Germany has to learn about, you know, like the Holocaust and Nazism and like the whole, like, you know, Hitler and the whole Nazi history. Like they have to learn about it because, you know, history is bound to repeat itself. And like when you're taught, you know, vague shit or not the whole truth, and now you're just in a world where you can question everything rather than like, hey, no, this actually happened. This is important to know. Well, now people are like, well, is it important to know? Should I just question everything? And I don't know how they don't grow tired of that because I really enjoy facts, honestly. It makes me think less. You know, like it's nice knowing that the earth is round. Why the hell should I even bother questioning that? What good is that going to do? Like, if the earth is flat, what good is that going to do? You know, I still have to work tomorrow. I still have to pay bills. So that's not going to really change. Well, like knowing like, you know, the truth about history, that's just better because now we don't have to question things. And I understand because right now we are questioning things. So we already know that this path of not fully understanding, this is the path that it leads to. It leads to a fucking insurrection on January 6th because people just didn't know or understand. It leads to people being very gullible about things that they listen to on the internet and, you know, things that they follow becomes really gullible about, and, you know, how they follow social media and everything. So we know what this path that's been, you know, we've been on this trajectory for over 100, 200 years, you know, with the United Daughters of the Confederacy kind of skewing our history books, especially in the South. So we already have that schism between the South and the North of what they learned versus what we in the South learned. So we already know this path. If we had just learned the truth at the beginning, and we weren't so we weren't so like we didn't have to coddle white people's feelings of, you know, because them feeling guilty is more important than my livelihood or my, like, you know, like my sanity. Like if we didn't have to deal with that, if it's just like, hey, here's the truth. Not all of it is bad. You know, there's some cool shit too about history. Then we'd probably be in a totally better, more awesome America. But because we had to, you know, whitewash history just to make, I don't know, a long story short, just to keep, you know, certain politicians in power and to be able to skew facts and to skew things, just to essentially trick and manipulate people. You know, like this is what we end up with. A country that doesn't even believe that climate change is real, or, you know, it's divided on party lines or whatever, that people aren't hearing the full truth. Like a lot of states have like a third grade reading level. You know, they can't really comprehend, while news articles are written on like an 11th grade reading level. So people really aren't understanding what they're reading, but they understand headlines, which are hella skewed. So they just share headlines and no one reads it, but they just assume that this headline is, you know, skewed to their favor, or this YouTube video where somebody is talking to them just that they can understand, because it's easier for them to understand via listening rather than reading and researching and reading books and things like that. So, I mean, long story short, it probably would have just been easier if we had just learned the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes. Yes, agreed. Toby, did you have something to say?
I concur. I mean, definitely everything that people are saying about not knowing this stuff before is definitely like an indictment on our educational system, what we care about. You know, you have the history is written by the victors, which is strange because, you know, the victors were the Union ? But the South and the Confederates had like a lot of influence, right? Reconstruction basically had to stop. I mean, I'm not super clear on all the history myself, but from what I understand, the Reconstruction was going for some time, but then they basically had to like give a lot of power back to the Confederate soldiers and like get federal presence out of some of those states. Not Confederate soldiers, but like the you know, like as veterans or whatever. And so I feel like there wasn't the oversight that there needed to be to make sure that things were taught correctly. And of course, even like all the way up until the civil rights movement, with voting rights, which is a different conversation, but still seeing like how without like the federal government up people's butts, they're not going to do the right thing and like teach things correctly and unbiased, which then leads to this kind of thing ended up being more partisan and politicized because now it's like, oh, the government's overreaching in your business. But it's like, well, if people just did the right thing in the first place, this wouldn't be a problem. If people taught Juneteenth and, the Tulsa Race Massacre and actually, had fair voting practices completely nationwide and all this other stuff, you wouldn't need this federal intervention, which then would give like a grievance to people who are, anti-federal, big government or whatever, but it ends up, hurting us all because you're not teaching things properly. And like people have to like find out, like you have to do all this extra work to find out like what you should have already known or to be afforded the rights that you should have already had.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm glad for these moves being made. I'm glad that at least with Juneteenth, that wasn't super partisan. Even last year, like, not to give this man too much credit, like, I mean, because he was trolling, so it really isn't much credit to give him. But like when Trump tried to have his rally on Juneteenth, and even like some of his like Black supporters were like, "Yeah, don't do that, don't do this."
In Tulsa.
In Tulsa, and it's just like, okay, at least there's some sense in some corners of every like part of the political universe where like people can realize that this is not something that we should do, and Juneteenth should be like more revered almost. So I'm glad that it's at least being more. It's not just like Democrats. Like Juneteenth is a thing that every state can look at. Every companies can start to incorporate, and you will hopefully see more education. I mean, again, there's a whole messy fight going on in the public school system, not just with critical race theory, but broader about like teaching race. And unfortunately, something like Juneteenth might be like opposed by some of these people, but we'll see. At least it seems to be fine in the state governments. Federal government's doing good. Corporations, I think, are incorporating this more, and so hopefully school systems will like really go and teach things like this, and then hopefully that'll lead to more questions. Well, what happened after Juneteenth? Reconstruction, what happened? Like, why did things not, like, why did there need to be a civil rights movement after the slaves were freed 100 years later? And hopefully there'll be more just like uprooting of these questions of like, what role did the government have in like blocking progress, essentially, when it comes to like rights and just like restitution, not even just reparations, but just in general, like things were very bad things, as an understatement, were done to Black Americans, newly freed men, and they were made harder at every turn. And why did it take 100 years for the civil rights movement? And then even after the civil rights movement, why were things like redlining allowed to happen? And why would the federal government turn a blind eye or even like make things worse? And so hopefully there can be more honest conversation about that, so that people kind of know it's not just like, oh, slavery is a long time ago, but there is a very slow, painful march towards, like, what was it, like the arc of history bends towards justice. It's a very slow bend. And it's still taking like a lot of work just to continue to go in the right direction. But hopefully people can like be more active in this type of thing, and like people really look at like, well, why haven't things been happening more proper? Like, you think that after something as drastic as ending slavery, it's like, well, why do things keep getting pushed? And like having honest conversations on why there's been lack of progress and how to kind of make up for that 150 plus years later. Yeah, or not 150. I can't quite, or I can't actually. Yeah, no, I think that's right. I think it's been like 155 years since 1865. Maybe I'll have to do that math later, but yeah.
Which isn't that long if you think about it.
It's not long at all.
I remember, I know he's like a controversial comedian, or he got in trouble, Louis C.K. I remember he was on some talk show, and he was talking about how slavery ended. Like this was like a couple years ago. He said like 140 or something years ago, and he said, I was like, that's not that long ago. That's like two 70-year-old ladies dying back to back. And that just kind of blew my mind because it's true. It's like one lady, you know, born, I guess, just at the end of slavery, or, you know, lives to be 70, you know, and then dies. And then some other lady is born that day that she dies and lives up to 70. And then we're here today. You know, like it's really not that long. That's literally just 2 generations. Barely. Like 70 is not even old, you know? It wasn't like, oh, 2 110-year-old ladies. Like, no, it was 2 70-year-old ladies. Like when people die at 70, you're sort of like, oh, that's still a little young, you know?
Yeah.
Not that old. Like 85, you know, you're probably started thinking, yeah, that's pretty old. But like 70? It's like, really? You know, it's like, hey, that's not that old. So, yeah. But Toby, I did want to bring up something that you said about history is written by the winners, which is sad because it is kind of true. But I guess I wanted to define what winners are because even though the Confederacy lost in terms of the war, they won through, you know, polluting the minds of hundreds, thousands, and, you know, several generations later through you know, through the history books and how they, and, you know, putting up statues and still keeping the you know, the Confederacy alive, keeping like this false, literally nothing. Like it literally, like, you know, just didn't mean anything. You know, like, but people to this day still say it's, you know, they wear the Confederate flag proudly, even though that's not what, even though it's a Confederate battle flag, it's not even the actual Confederate flag. And they still wear it proudly, saying that this is part of my heritage. And it's like, what is your heritage? It's like just being from the South, just being a white person from the South. Is it like, what is it that you're holding on to that you feel like, you know, it's worth it? Because sometimes I think about, you know, just, you know, like you'll have a friend or something and they'll be like, they don't even, like a man sometimes may not even want his last name because their father was trash. So they're trying to forget that part of their history or like their ancestral history, or they might have like a grandfather or grandmother who was, you know, just abusive to their spouse. And it's like, yeah, I don't really want to fuck with that family member that, I don't really want to like keep their memory. I'm not going to like hang a picture of them in my house or, you know, invite them over to things because they're just shitty. So we are okay with, you know, that. Like we understand that. So I find it really odd that they don't understand how, hey, you know, like your ancestors who supported slavery. It's like, yeah, they may have been able to make like a really great, you know, macaroni casserole and they got passed down from generation to generation. Yeah, that's cool or whatever. You can still hold on to the macaroni casserole, but you can say, yeah, like my great 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 grandmother was like a big part of the Confederacy. That's really shitty. She didn't make a great macaroni casserole though, and we still like make it. That's not really part of, you know, that's not really part of the same thing, you know? So like, yeah, you can hold on to the fucking macaroni casserole recipe. That's pretty cool. Yeah, she's still, you know, your ancestor, but it's not like you have to be like, hey, okay, yeah, let's celebrate everything about my great great grandmother. And like, no, like, I mean, there's people in my own family who I'm just like, yeah, you know, like, I'm not really going to keep too much in contact with this person because this person's just shitty. But like, I don't know, if they were to pass something down to me, I'd be like, all right, cool. you're so shitty though, but I'm not gonna not take, I don't know, like 100K or a house that you passed out to me.
Facts. Come on. Be real with it. Be real.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. So I don't see like why they have to like hold on to this. Like, no, you were a shitty human being. That shittiness affected like me and my family. So no, fuck you. But sure, I'll take the house.
In this case, thank you for being garbage because I get to get your house. But,
right.
Hey, thanks for being garbage. You allow me to inherit 10K. You know.
Yeah, and it's like I'll use that 10K better than like you would. So yeah, but yeah, that as an example.
Oh, we have Jeff in the chat. RIP in the chat. Literally.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
no, very good points overall.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
From some things, but...
Yeah, like it just makes no sense to me. Where, like if somebody in my past was just like super shitty, I'd be like, all right, well, I don't need to, be happy about every single thing about them. But if they, yeah, exactly, if they had like a really cool family recipe from the past, and like sure, I don't. It's cool to pass down or something,
Oh, yeah.
a trinket. But if it's like, oh, my great grandmother had this really racist item, it's like, then maybe not keep that, or maybe donate it to some sort of museum or something. Like,
come on, use this up here, you guys.
Yeah, it's like all the things. Why did your great grandmother hold on to something racist? That just goes to show a lot. That's like the equivalent of, oh yeah, this taxidermy pile of cow manure was from my great grandfather. It's like, why the hell is this what's being passed down in the family? You had no other things. Like, even a pencil would have been better. But
or even maybe like, I don't know, the part of the car he worked on when he was at Ford.
Right. Yeah.
Something.
Like, no.
Yeah.
Let's pass down the shittiest thing and hold on to it and keep it and treasure it. And like, no.
And again, in the words of Toby, thank you for being garbage.
Well, thank you for not being garbage.
But in this case, thank you for being garbage. You told me a lot about you and your whole entire family just by holding poop.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Like, I want to date a guy whose family does that. Like holds on to something like that. Like, no.
But never mind. Not even gonna go there.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
I feel like that would be a definite turn off. It's like, I don't know, that would be so weird because it would be like, hopefully you're not going to inherit that, and then you expect our kid to inherit. No, our kid's not going to inherit that. Like,
that's when you run to the center of the table, you smack the emergency meeting button. Brr, sus, get him out of here. Get him out of here. We are voting you out. Oh man. But I found something cool. I posted this in the description box below. I actually found the royal edict for the French American islands, 1685. Going back to what you were saying, Elle, about how if the slave master had a baby by somebody that was a slave, by a woman that was a slave, what would the circumstance would be. I actually found that, and it's very interesting. The whole edit is very interesting. Again, I got that posted in the description box below, so you guys can check that out at your leisure. So if you're watching on Periscope or Twitch, if you jump over to our YouTube channel, Melanated Counseling Gang YouTube channel. Matter of fact, hold on. Let me see if I can drop this link.
All right, because we hear it on Twitch. Like you can click on links on Twitch, I think.
Yeah, you should be able to click this. If you should be able to click the YouTube link on Twitch, that will direct you to our YouTube page. And for this episode, the link to the 1685 Royal Edit is down in there. And you can look at it, read it, and everything else, along with there's a encyclopedia.com article that got posted on there, and then also the history channel. I have that link for Juneteenth that's posted down there as well. So check that out. So going back to what Elle was saying, I actually got it pulled up. Yeah, not a problem. Not a problem. And so, article, what is it? Article, looks like 9. Article 9 reads this. The freemen who will have one or several children from their concubine with their slaves, together with the masters who permitted this, each will be condemned to a fine of 2,000 pounds of sugar. And if they are the masters of the slave by whom they've had the said children, we wish that beyond the fine, they be deprived of the slave and the children, and that she and they be confiscated for the profit of the royal hospital without ever being manumitted. Nevertheless, we do not intend for the present article to be enforced if the man who was not married to any other person, to another person during his concubinage with his slave, would marry in the church. The said slave, by who this means, will be manumitted and the children rendered free and legitimate. Basically, and all it always says is this. If you was a slave owner in the French American islands, so like the Caribbean islands, and you messed around and you had a child by a slave without, any just cause, not only would the woman be free, but the children would be free. And even if, let's say, the children, the slave owners' children, they've done something to some of the same degree, again, the woman and the children will be freed. And on top of that, the fine would be 2,000 pounds of sugar, which back in those days, that's a lot of sugar. And that's a hefty weight. That's a lot of sugar. And then that's the one for Article 9, where you were talking about if the slave owner had a child by someone that was a slave, what would happen to him? That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then Article 13, this is interesting too. Article 13 says like this. We wish if a slave husband has married a free woman, the children, both male and girls, will follow the condition of their mother and be free like her, in spite of the servitude of their father. This is where it gets kind of weird though. And if that the father is free and the mother is slave, the children of the slaves will be slaves of the same. So in other words, the roles were reversed. If a man was a slave and he married a woman that was free and they had kids, the children would be free with the mom and not with the dad. So the children couldn't be born into slavery. Like they said, no, not going to happen. Mm-hmm. However, if the man was free and the woman was enslaved, then in that instance, the kids will be slaved. And so
that's
they wouldn't
be who it's coming through from the body. Kind of like in like Judaism, if the woman if a woman is Jewish and has a kid, then the kid is Jewish. Whereas if a man is Jewish and the woman isn't Jewish and they had a kid, the kid would not be Jewish. It depends on the mother.
Yeah.
So it's probably something to that regard.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I read those, but there's a lot. There's a lot. I got you guys check that out. Check that out. Check out that 1685 road edit for the French American islands. It's a lot of good stuff. I just leaned on it, but yeah, there was a lot of stuff that was going on. Which is why it's another reason why we have to have Juneteenth in the conversation, because there was a lot of mess that was going on, not only here in USA, but also just down south, where our Jamaican brothers and sisters, our Haitian brothers and sisters, our Dominican Republic brothers and sisters, all of them, what they were going through during that time and whatnot, it just signified that they had it just as bad as many Black folks had it bad in America. If not, probably a little bit harsher. But even still, it just goes to show that Juneteenth is something that we gotta have celebrated. Like, create enough noise to make it a holiday where everybody just takes it off and just honors it. If we can honor independence, Day, we should more than been able to honor Juneteenth. Like, for real. Why is it not a national holiday is beyond me. I'll look at it like this. I'll be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if 9/11 becomes an actual federal holiday before Juneteenth. I would not be surprised.
So you think what's going on in government right now, it's not going to pass?
As far as Juneteenth becoming a federal holiday, it could, given the right people, like, shoot the gun like right now and do what's necessary to get it passed right now and make it a legit federal holiday. Do it now. Do it now, because if nobody else does it now, unless we got some strong backing in the next election cycle to keep pushing to make it a federal holiday, in my opinion, I don't think it would be. And even then, it's not to say that some whack job decides to say, hey, how come we can't make 9/11 a federal holiday? And build up enough momentum to get that passed before Juneteenth gets passed.
Oh, okay. Just like, all right, because sometimes people feel like there has to be an order to things.
Facts.
I remember I was on a talk with Nell, like Nieves, I think, and like Paget and Kelvin, and like we were talking about Asian hate, and I think Paget brought up how some people think that brought up the topic of like people who don't think there's time to deal with like Asian hate because we have to deal with Black hate first, as if like Black hate is first and then Asian. Like, no, there's no like order of operations for like these things. It's like we have to deal with them both. Like I understand like not having to pack everything onto things because, for this quick example, like Asian hate and Black hate may have similarities, but they're still like different issues, but they still need to be addressed for sure. And with, like 9/11 being a holiday, I know this was just a hypothetical, but like 9/11 being a holiday versus Juneteenth being a holiday, it shouldn't be a versus in between. They should both be holidays, for their own right, for for their own individual right. Yeah, so there would probably be like some sort of wackadoo, be like, wait a second, shouldn't it be 9/11 first? It's like, what? And then now that becomes a thing, and then Twitter has some fucking trends. It's like 9/11 first. It's like 9 before 19 or some bullshit, and then like that becomes some sort of thing. And I can see that happening when it's like total bullshit. And
it is. It is like
huge topic that shouldn't have even been a thing, but now it's a thing. I hate that. I hate it when things that shouldn't be a thing are now a thing.
Yeah. And again, it'll be just my luck. If this mess does happen, it'll be just my luck. I'll be like, you know what? I'm shut this whole thing down. Like, I'm done. I'm staying off of social media. I ain't putting my face on no cameras. I'm just going completely blackout. I'm finna go live off the grid. You can send me a postcard, whenever, but yeah. Yeah. Like, hey, are you okay? Are you still alive? We miss you.
Like, wish you were here, and it's like Twitter.
Yeah, it'll be my face or my picture, but it'll be whited out with a question mark. Where's Ronald? Like, nobody knows.
Like, this could be you.
Nope. Done. So done. So done. But yeah, y'all check out those articles. Check them out. It's really informative. Really informative. And again, like I said, it brings to light everything that goes on. So yeah.
I'm gonna take a look at that just because I don't think I knew really about, like, maybe vaguely, but I don't think I really knew much about this edict. I did want to say something because I was looking at the description and I realized, and you mentioned it, of course, in your little monologue, but like in terms of 4th of July, like if we could celebrate 4th of July, why not Juneteenth? And we had put like why some people are not celebrating 4th of July. It's something that I actually just thought about. When it came to 4th of July last year, like I haven't seen it brought up yet because I guess you were getting kind of close. Also, last year was much more volatile with the national conversation around race and everything. So everything was being talked about a lot. Like 4th of July was talked about. I remember seeing one meme, like the meme with like a mannequin that's like pointing at another mannequin laughing. Like the one mannequin that's like looks like they're crying and another mannequin pointing at them. And usually you have like some caption of something outrageous of like, this person does this, X, Y, and Z. And so the one that was circulating around 4th of July was like, this guy still celebrates 4th of July. And then like the mannequin looks like it's being made fun of. But like it's gotten to that point where it's like if you even mention that you have a celebration for 4th of July, you could get roasted or clowned. And it's like a very big shift from, I feel, years ago. I mean, yeah, there's always been people who are like, I don't celebrate 4th of July. We were never free 4th of July, which is a valid point, of course. You were talking about that, Ron, about how someone was saying that, you're celebrating something that didn't even apply to you. But it is interesting that there are people very adamant about it. I mean, there's still a lot of people, like we in general, we get the day off. Black people, I mean, everyone likes to eat, but Black people love their cookouts. We love it. Like, you're going to see a cookout. You're going to see, if there's a holiday and a chance, you're going to see a cookout. So, like, you're still going to, like, I remember on 4th of July last year, people were saying, like, people like just tweet the same thing in a row, like one tweet that's like just a line and another line and another line just repetitively to make a point. Someone was doing something about something like that for 4th of July, I guess making the point that like we weren't free on 4th of July, we weren't free on 4th of July or something. I don't remember what they said. Yeah. And then another Black person tweeted and said, but I'm gonna eat though, but I'm gonna eat though, but I'm gonna eat though.
Like, you ain't gonna stop this barbecue. You ain't gonna stop this barbecue.
I'm still gonna go to this barbecue. And so it's like, people are still gonna be like celebrating. Like, I went home last year during the pandemic. I mean, at that point, things were a lot more clear, especially here in Massachusetts. Oh my God. Like, if you look at what's happening now, like, I do not want to fly. Like, I do not want to fly. Like, I'm not going home for 4th of July. I just don't want to do that. I have some other stuff coming up. They have big birthdays for my family next month. and I'm like, I should go home. But like, just the way that these, like, you all heard Southwest, freaking, in Southwest and other airlines, Southwest grounded like all their flights today and I think yesterday because apparently some system that checks the weather and sends the data about weather to the flights got messed up. I mean, we don't know if it wasn't a hack, or at least we weren't told it was a hack or ransomware, but it was just, it went offline. A lot of, all these incidents have been up with unruly passengers. Just in general, flights have been missed and canceled and rebooked because there's just too much demand, I think. And like, there's been issues. I don't know why like every airline's been having technical issues. I guess the software and the partners or whatever providers that they get their tech from have been messing up. So I'm just like, I really do not want to fly. Like, I just don't want to deal with all this right now.
Hey,
but,
Nick.
Hey,
long time no see, buddy.
Yeah.
What's up?
Yeah. Yeah, I went on a bit of a tangent, but I was mostly talking about the flights because I went home for 4th of July and like I ate food. I didn't go to cookout. I mean, of course, it was still like very in the middle of COVID, so I just was home with my family. But like, we went home. We had very raw, honest conversations about like things like defunding the police and like just the state of the racial like thing. We didn't really talk a lot about like race and like things like that growing up, to be honest. So it was kind of interesting to have these raw conversations about like police brutality and like the role of police in society and what we need to be doing to invest in like other resources that would help our communities and whatever. But like the point is that like, like, are we really canceling 4th of July? Like, I don't really know. Like, it's like, yeah, you have one side that's very patriotic about it and will like I don't want to just say offended, but they will fight anything against any criticism. Like Frederick Douglass was like, what is 4th of July to a slave? But like, and like, there's many people who've taken that route, but there are people who just won't understand that, and they will get very sort of, you can say, reactionary. They won't see that perspective of like, I don't support 4th of July or I don't rock with this because it didn't apply to everyone. It was hypocritical. Kind of a little funny thing, but if anyone watches Epic Rap Battles of History, you should watch Thomas Jefferson versus Frederick Douglass. I won't give away the battle, but like Frederick Douglass made a lot of good points about how were you a founding father with like the life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, unalienable rights. He was like, I think one of the bars was like, I was an alien to your unalienable rights. And he was saying all this other stuff. So when you look at that and you just see like, in fact, I'll get the link for it.
So I'll post it on the channel.
Yeah, it came out years ago. It's actually funny because it came out in a time of pretty heated political tension, like maybe 2016. So a lot of people were like, "Oh my gosh, this liberal wokeness," and I was just like, "Are you guys serious? Like this? If you had like a real battle between like Thomas Jefferson and Frederick Douglass, like look at what Frederick Douglass wrote. Like he literally said, "What is 4th of July to a slave?" Like this is the kind of rhetoric that he would talk about, but things were just so tense in terms of racial tension in 2016 that people, I guess, couldn't understand the context of, the times that Frederick Douglass lived in. But yeah, I love the RB. I haven't kept up with all of it recently, but like I would watch them so much. I'm actually gonna look and see, like, I'll watch it after the stream, and I'm gonna see what the comments are like because it was May 30th of 2016. Oh God, it was just such a bad time in terms of like race conversations in the country.
Right. Yeah, I was still living in Colorado Springs during that time. Ooh. Don't let me live that nightmare again. Ugh. That was terrible. Terrible. Oh, that was terrible. Seeing. Nah, I'm not even gonna. Nope. I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. I'm zipping it.
I feel like you're alluding to something, but
oh yeah, 2016. Who else was disappointed by 2016? Like I was very disappointed in 2016. However, there was one good thing that probably came out of 2016. One, I think. I don't know. I'm trying to think, but I think there was probably one good thing that came out of 2016. Underneath the land of Castillo. Yeah,
I have a lot of good things from
I
me
mean,
personally.
Obama was still technically president in 2016.
You said what?
Obama was still technically president in 2016.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was president for the whole year. Yeah.
Yeah. That was probably like the one good thing, because after that, like when I saw Michigan go as red as his life sign. I was not a happy camp. I'm like, what is going on? Like, for real? For real.
At least Michigan really got its shit together, though. It got its shit together quick.
Yeah.
And in 2020.
They also passed marijuana. They did a lot of stuff, I feel like. I mean, I'm not hip to all the dynamics of the state, but I feel like there's progress that's been made in general. And progress is always good.
Florida of the North.
So Michigan's the Florida of the North.
Yeah, I've heard that.
That's
interesting. That's because Gretchen, Big Gretchen, she ain't playing around with nobody. She ain't got no time. She gives zero. When I tell you she gives zero about your feelings, about your opinions. She's like, nah, if you ain't trying to help my state become where it needs to be, I ain't got nothing to deal with you. Kick rocks. Like, Big Gretch, you got my vote. Yeah.
One last thing I was gonna say. Sorry, let you finish your thought, Ron.
No, I'm good. I'm about to post this link.
Okay. Yeah, the last thing I was gonna say was, like, with 4th of July, because I just looked at the date. It's a Sunday. Yeah, because last year 4th of July was a Saturday, which meant Friday was technically like the federal holiday in terms of getting off. This year it's a Sunday, so Monday ends up being the holiday. And so the stream will be 2 days after. So I mean, we could even have a more in-depth conversation about that dynamic of 4th of July. And kind of asking people like, hey, what are you doing? Do you celebrate? What are the conversations in your community about 4th of July? And obviously Juneteenth is this Saturday. So, you know, if we hang out with our peoples and have conversations, hey.
That's my friend Ken. He's actually the one I brewed beer with.
Hey. There we go.
Yes.
Hey.
Yeah.
KB with the brew.
KB's brew store.
There you go. There we go. Toby. Yes. 4th of July stream.
Yeah, I mean, we're flexible, of course. I'm just saying, like, this Saturday we'll have Juneteenth. We talk with our peeps about Juneteenth. A lot of people are very anti-4th of July, but there are people who are more or at least willing to, you know, celebrate it for what it is, like in terms of being with your family, having the day off. But it'll be interesting, like, I don't know, like, and they're so close together. That's the great thing. There's not even 3 weeks. Like, it's basically 2 weeks, honestly, because from June 19th to July 3rd is 2 weeks. So, and I never noticed that before ever until like recently, really. But because of course the significance and the conversation around 4th of July and, like, you know, the extra patriotism, which is whatever. I mean, I have an American scarf from the Yang campaign, and actually, a funny story about that. When I wore that American flag scarf, and I would go to some events that were more like Black culture, like little like whatever parties, even like sometimes, you know, lounge or a club. Like, I remember there was like one girl, she was a female DJ, Black, Haitian, and like it was a very good conversation. It was a very respectful conversation, but she was like, "Why do you have that scarf?" She was like, "That's an interesting thing as a Black man to have the American flag scarf, given like what it symbolizes," which is like so interesting because, like, if I was it's actually funny because a lot of like older white women, not old, but like older white women who, you know, most likely were Democratic, but like they would always be like, "Oh my gosh, I love your scarf." Like, wow, I love your scarf. And I'm like, okay. That's a cool scarf.
Let me wear this a little bit tighter for you, baby. Let me tighten it up.
Okay. On the scarf. It's like, okay.
Toby with the win. Come on, Toby.
The what?
Toby with the win. Come on.
So my high school actually, Thomas Stone High School, our mascot was the Cougars. So let's just say when I have my scarf on, you know, those are not the only Cougars I'm looking for. Let me stop.
Yes, puns are intended.
Yeah.
If you're still watching me, please clip that. I need that for like future reference. In fact, Father's Day is coming up, and I have many more jokes to make. So,
yeah, Father's Day is next week Sunday. Woo, boy! No, this coming up Sunday.
Yeah, it's this upcoming Sunday. So it's crazy. Like, there's a lot going on. I'm not going to be in town with my family, but I definitely have to make sure I give a good homage to my pops. He's one of the special people who has a birthday next month, so I might be in town. Yes, okay. Hey, Tamar.
You have to pay homage to the daddies.
To the daddies. Goodness. Dang, I wanted to wait till Father's Day, but since you already brought this up, god dang it. I was gonna say a special shout out, you know, obviously to my dad, but also to all the women who've called me daddy over the years. Anyway, and I dropped the mic.
Wide open.
Okay. Toby has multiple women calling him daddy. I believe it.
What? Hey, whoa!
Yay!
What's up?
Oh,
it's all jokes. It's all jokes. It is all jokes. I had to stop giving myself this reputation because people actually believe me.
I mean, what's not to believe? I believe it.
Okay. You're right. You're right.
It sounds believable.
If it looks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, chances are it's a duck. Poor Toby, he can't feel his nose.
If it quacks like a duck and looks like a duck, it's probably a daddy.
I'm going full in. I'm not gonna backpedal. We never double back. We double, triple, and quadruple down on this channel. Some people are sugar daddies. Other people are budget sugar daddies. Splenda daddy and
Splenda daddy.
Splenda daddy and stevia fathers. I guess that's the best that I can come up with.
Monk fruit daddies. Okay.
Wait, what was that? What was that substitute you said?
Monk fruit. It's supposed to be a good sugar alternative.
Sugar alternative. That's good. That's a good name.
Yeah, the Mac Daddy. There we go.
Return of the Mac for real.
Oh man, yes. All right, y'all. Listen, we're going to end this stream a little bit earlier than anticipated. I know we're sad to go, but is there any final thoughts, jokes, comments, facts, giggles, laughs that anybody wants to share? This is your time to shine.
You just share a giggle.
Yeah.
Here you go.
There you go. Share giggles. and if it makes your stomach just tighten in the way where you walk away with a six-pack, that's even better.
Ooh.
We take those too. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nah. Oh well. We tried.
Well,
We tried. Anyways, you guys have been good. Again, we got some links posted for you in the description box down below. Give them a look. Shout out to my homie Sibby from Twitch. It was good to see you. Thank you for subscribing, Chief.
I've been in Kansas City, downtown for a conference, and I forget where we went to, but it was like downtown area, like right by the I forgot what the name of the center is, but the big center, convention center. So that was 4 years ago. I don't know. Next time, I guess make sure I won't be on 54th Street. I appreciate the shout out, the advice.
Yeah, facts. Mm-mm.
4th Street Family Grill. You know about this too, Ron?
What?
The 54th Street Family Restaurant in St. Louis, Kansas City. Oh, it's in a bunch of different areas. Oh, it's not even just in Missouri. It's actually in Texas too.
I thought it was just a street. Just don't eat
Yeah.
on that street at all.
Yeah, I thought it was a street too, but when I looked it up, it like the first thing that showed up was family restaurant.
See, I'm good.
Okay, never eat at 54th Street. Good to know.
Good to know. Itinerary. Bypass 54th Street, all restaurants. Don't care if it's fire or not. Bypass them.
Can you say though real quick why we shouldn't eat there?
You ain't see this? Toby, you ain't see that? You ain't see that?
I assume the food is either really bad or low key, like they had incidents.
Bro, the green, if you see a green face that look like he don't feel too good because the boat been rocking way too much, chances are the food is terrible.
That's tragic. That's just like that's like
Ooh, bowel saver.
oh no.
Facts. Save your lower and upper intestines. Period. That's what he's saying. Save everything on your insides.
All right, well, thank you for the life-saving tip.
It'd be like that. Like you warn a brother before he do anything. Warn a sister before she do anything. Just warn everybody.
Warn the brothers. Yeah. Oh shoot.
Wow.
That's actually really scary. Like I think I've been lucky that I've never had food poison. I mean, like, you know, you get sick in life, but it was never really like where like, oh, I ate something and I know for a fact that I'm sick because of this. But like, I don't know. I just like, how do you prevent that from happening? Like,
stay away from that restaurant.
Yeah.
Yes, for like at least one restaurant, a few.
Stay away from the whole chain. Stay away from the whole chain. Like, nah, done, son.
Yeah.
Done. But man, Chief, hope you feel better. Like for real, you know. Thank you for the warning. Dog, thank you for the warning. You do what you gotta do to get better. And yeah, y'all stay away from 54th Street. Stay away from the whole chain. Boycott it, do what you gotta do. Yeah. Boycott the chain. That's terrible to say, but hey. Terrible to say, but hey.
It happens.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Listen, we gotta go. It's been fun. It's been real. We will catch you guys back same time, same channel. Then, because next week we're gonna be talking about
Another holiday.
yes, another holiday. So stay tuned for that. And
may or may not have
a special guest. We don't know. But that
don't.
means you have to tune in and watch. Share the love, spread it, share the love, and all that other good stuff. Come back with another gut-wrenching session with your favorite trio. So we will catch y'all later. In the meantime, peace.
Please, good
Thank you
night.
for joining. Have a good night.
Mish, we see you. Bye, friends.